we start right about now. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome once again. My name is Emmanuel. I'll be your co-host for today's session. All right, and I have here with me Muyiwa. Muyiwa is a data analyst and leads the data team with an FMCG here in Nigeria. Okay, so Muyiwa would be taking us today on using AI in simplifying the process of creating a database. I happen to share experience when it comes to um, database management as a data engineer myself. And in case you've heard me talk about myself as a data analyst before now, yes, I also wear the hat of a data engineer. As a data engineer myself, it comes times where I have to spin up a new instance, right? A new database, even up until this morning, I was still working with one of with a database with a data warehouse to spin up data sets to store tables and the rest. Why do we have databases? What are the importance of databases? Why should we even consider it? But even taking it a step further, how can AI help us in this particular process? Yes, prior to now, it is still a technical skill, right? Database management, storing of data in a database, reading of data from a database. It's still a technical skill, which if you are growing in the part of data analytics, you should be aware of. Data, anything that has to do with data, really, you should be aware of. But AI has come on board, and we can now utilize artificial intelligence to do quite a number of interesting things, even when it comes to managing of our databases. All right. And normally, what you would have heard out there is the language of SQL. What is SQL? I'll just give you a quick introduction to that. All right. Of course, I'm still going to allow Muyiwa to take over. Muyiwa is going to start shortly. What is SQL? SQL is the language of databases. All right. All right. In case you have ever wondered what SQL is, some people call it SQL, some people call it SQL. Whichever one strikes the chord for you is okay. All right. It's a language that is used in interacting with databases. Why did SQL come on board in the first place? What do we do with SQL? So all throughout today, what we'll be taking you through with the help of Muyiwa as well is how can we utilize SQL? How can we use AI and optimize our SQL writing and use it in this case to also spin up databases, manage a database, and so on. As of yesterday, we had sent out a resource to each and every one of us that had registered for this program, for this particular masterclass. It's currently, the title of the email is Database Installation Guide and Dataset. If you haven't gone through it, no problem. You can always refer to the email that was sent yesterday. It's called the Database Installation Guide and Dataset. This was sent to each and every one of us who has registered for this particular masterclass. So it will guide you through how you can install a particular flavor of SQL on your system, where you can try out all that we'll be teaching today during the course of this particular masterclass. So at this point in time, I will hand it over to Muyiwa, who will then do us the honors of taking us through the whole process of how this works. And I'll be here along the way to answer your questions. Muyiwa will definitely provide insights to you as well. I love working with Muyiwa. I love when Muyiwa teaches, because he breaks down the concept of data, anything that has to do with data, in the simplest possible format. Don't take my word for it. This particular session will be a very good proof to that, actually. Other students who have gone through master classes or actual classes with us have seen Muyiwa deliver this over and over again. So I trust Muyiwa to be able to do a fantastic job today in delivering this particular topic. So at this point in time is enough of the talk, enough of introductions. All right. I'll hand it over to Muyiwa at this point. Then, of course, once in a while, I'll come in and maybe make a few comments here and there. Thank you. Over to you, Muyiwa.
Thank you very much, sir, for this great privilege to be on this platform again this morning. All right. So I've been introduced. So as Prof said, I'm the tracking team lead in Nigerian Breweries. seeing over the affairs of the other tracking officers, data entry officers, and data analysts in the tracking center. So here we have built dashboard, we have built reports, templates, and we have helped to solve so many problems regarding data analysis. So that's just a brief introduction of us. So we are not here to introduce ourselves. We are here to introduce us into database, then SQL language. So now, the first question I have here for us is, who is a data analyst? I don't know if anybody wants to tell me who a data analyst is. So please, at every given point in time, you have a question to ask. Just ensure, or we ask a question and you wish to answer, you can just help us raise your digital hand, then we ask you to speak. So now the first question I have here is, who is a data analyst? So is anyone willing to tell us who he or she thinks a data analyst is before we go further? So whatever answer you give us is not a wrong answer. So who is willing to tell us who a data analyst is? Is there anyone?
Am I permitted to answer?
Sir.
All
Okay,
right.
sir.
So
Since you want to
does
do
anyone want to give this a try? Just give it your best shot based on your own understanding who a data analyst is. All right. Anyone who wants to give this a try? If you want to do that, just kindly unmute your mic and speak, or indicate by raising your hand, and you can then go ahead and speak. Anyone? Or if you want to, if you prefer to type, you can also drop it in the chat box. Anyone? Okay, I think we have a shy class today. We were
all
all right.
right, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Muyiwa. Good
Yeah,
afternoon.
good afternoon, Moise. How are you?
Good afternoon.
So
I'm
you can
fine,
go
thank
ahead, please.
you. Okay, with my few understanding, I think a data analyst is a professional who gathers, cleans, analyze, and then visualize data for the purpose of preparing solution to a problem.
Thank you very much, Moise. So
You're welcome.
Moise has just given us who a data analyst is. A data analyst is somebody who gathers, clean up, interpret data, and his aim of all this is just to solve questions or problems. So there are questions you like to answer, there are problems you like to resolve. So a data analyst helps us to gather data. He cleans up the data, interpret the data, create insights from them, and present his findings to the stakeholders that are in need of it, so that they can resolve the problems they like to use it to resolve, or answer whatever questions that is needed to be answered as a result of the analysis that we done. So that's just a simple meaning of, or simple definition of who a data analyst is. Now, you can see the process. What does a data analyst do? Gathers data, clean up data, model data. That is where you transform the data into your desired output. You transform into a presentable format. You convert the data into a format you like to present it. Then you interpret it, visualize, and present. So now once the analysis is done, you don't keep it under a bushel. You don't go and hide it somewhere. You present it to those that are in need of the analysis, so that informed decision, not just anyhow decision, informed decisions can be made for the purpose of the business or even for personal use. Data analysis is usable in every sphere of life: governmental, non-governmental, religious institutions, anywhere, personal life. You make use of it anywhere. So it's to present findings to make informed decisions. So now, why data analytics matters? In our companies, we have data flying all over. but this data needs to be harnessed. So we only have some few individuals that can harness this data. Now, information and decisions are not made on essay. Decisions are not made on I think. Decisions are made on facts. Decisions are made on empirical data. So now, if there's nobody to be able to draw up insights, to create insights from this data, then we'll be sure that in the nearest future, that company will begin to go down the ladder because they are not making meaningful impact from the data available to them. So companies relies on data to make informed decision. A company that is growing today, a company that is making that is expanding its breads all over the waters today is because they are having data. They are having data being harnessed and to make informed decisions. The data analytics is skill that is increasing across industries. Like I said earlier, in the educational sectors, we need data analysts. In the health sectors, there are data analysts working in order to analyze patients' data and the rest. In the finance sector, there are financial analysts. Everywhere we go to today, there are analysts everywhere because it is a skill that is demanded in every sphere of life. So there's nowhere. That is why even you may not be tagged a data analyst, but as far as you have data available with you and you are drawing up insight from it, then you are doing the job of a data analyst. So you may not be tagged as a data analyst, but you are already doing the job of a data analyst because you have data, you are creating something from, you are drawing insights from in order to help this business to make decisions. Then it enables business to maximize their values, the values of their data set through visualization and reporting. So now through your visualization, through your reporting is the easiest way in which management can understand it. Imagine a data set having thousands of rows. No boss, no manager wants to go through such type of data. So it is for us as a data expert to create insights from them, create visuals, create reports that the company can use in order to maximize their potential. So, like my guy will always say, you don't have to become a data analyst to know or use data analytics. That is a quote from our guy here. You don't have to become a data analyst. See, there are job placements today, there are job adverts today. By the time you go through the job requirements, you will see that they will tell you you should be able to you should have the ability to, you should know how to use Excel, you should know how to use Power BI, you should know how to use this, you should know how to use data analytics tools. But they have not told you that the job designation is not data analyst, data analyst. The job destination will just be a sales operations manager. It says that a this manager, a that one. So the job destination does not have to be data analyst. But as far as their data to be used, their data, you have access to data, then you don't have choice than to learn the techniques, to have the technical know-how to work your way around this data and draw up insights for business decision making. So there are various tools. I'm trying to rush us through this aspect so that we can go into practicals and ask our questions. So now there are various tools that are available to us as a data analyst, as a data user, as a data expert. We have Microsoft Excel, we have Power BI, we have SQL, we have Google Sheets, Tableau, Python, and the rest. There are various tools. So, but the basic of them all is Excel, because the knowledge of Excel is applicable in these other tools. So that's the reason why whenever you want, if anyone comes to me and says he or she wants to become a data analyst, I ask question, what do you know about Excel, so that we can know where to start from. So here in CAMANDA, we teach these tools. Just beckon on us and we are set to put you through. So we are set to start your data analytics journey for you. So now, let's quickly do a poll. How many persons here? So you can just do that by raising your digital hand. How many persons here have used SQL before? Or you have even seen the interface where you can run your SQL language? So how many persons here have made use of SQL before? So let's do the counting. Just raise your digital hand. Okay. Blessing, I've used SQL before. That's nice. Justice. So I've counted two. Just two. Okay. I only have two persons. Okay, three. Oluwole Shegun also. All right. So we just have three persons here that have used SQL before now. All right, good. So yesterday when the mail was sent out to us, there was a guide that was sent with the mail. So how many of us have gone through the guide and have been able to download the tool we'll be using today? So how many of us have gone through the guide so that you can practicalize with us as we be working around the tool you are using today? How many of us? If you have it installed on your system, please can you raise your digital hand once again, please? All right. Okay, Blessing has installed it. Blessing, she has it installed in her system. All right. Think only
Okay, so if you haven't, no problem. We just follow the session for today. Sorry to interrupt, Mira. If you
no
haven't,
problem.
just follow the session for today. All right, so that the details of this is currently in your email. All right, we will do well to maybe remind you of this after this session as well. But the details of this is already in your email. As I said, the title of the email would be database installation guide and data set coming from CAMANDA. All right. So please do well to check your email for this, even if you haven't installed it. Today we'll be taking you. Okay, someone has even dropped it in the chat box. Good. So today we'll take you through. We'll have to work with the assumption that you have done, because installation takes a few minutes, but that guide takes you through the whole process of installation. So we have to work with the assumption that you've installed at least one flavor of SQL on your system. Now, I'll allow Muyiron to go into this much later. I think we have that covered for today. But one of the things you have to consider is that when it comes to SQL, there are multiple flavors of SQL. Now, not for wrong reason. The SQL language was developed for a particular reason, for a particular purpose. So the option that was the one we are using for this particular session is the Postgres SQL. Okay, please do well to if you already have others. Let's say you have like MySQL on your system, or SQL Server Management Studio for different other flavors of SQL, or SQLite. All what we're going to be sharing today still works for you. All right, but I just want you to be aware that even as long as you have SQL on your system, you have nothing to be worried about. Okay, whichever one you have, you should be able to understand what we are discussing here today and apply the knowledge. Okay, but for the sake of this session, we'll be using a flavor of SQL, which is the Postgres SQL. If you have questions around if you have questions around why SQL, which particular SQL, whatever it is for, please do raise that up as we proceed. But at this point in time, I'll hand it over to Muyiron to continue with the conversation of today, which is around the SQL, using AI for database management and SQL.
Thank you very much, sir. So now the question here is now, why SQL as a data analyst? Now, if you take note of what Prof has been saying, whenever he's mentioning SQL, he's mentioning SQL as a language. So there is this general misconception that SQL is a program. SQL is not a program. SQL is a language, is a means of communication. So SQL is not a program. If you also have the misconception before now. So one of the take home from today's session is that SQL is not a program. It is a language in which we use as a means of communication. So now, why do we need SQL, the knowledge of SQL as a data analyst? Now, the first thing here is, if for those of us that have used Excel or that use Excel very well, you can bear with me that Excel has its limitation. Excel has its limitation. Now look at, in Excel we have 1.04 million rows. Then we have about 16,000 columns. 1.04 million rows and about 16,000 columns in Excel. Now, you can also bear with me that you can't use half of this sheet, because by the time you get a certain point, your Excel will be taking 5 minutes to proceed. You are trying to filter run your filter on your Excel, and your Excel will be taking 5 minutes, taking 10 minutes. Okay, Prof, sir, please can go ahead.
That's this example you just gave, right? I think that's a very fantastic thing we should have done here. All right. So if you have not used Excel to that point, don't be afraid. Okay. Don't mind us, right? Some of us have used Excel to the point whereby we made Excel to cough. If has anyone here used Excel to the point where Excel began coughing? Maybe in cough in this case is you open up your Excel file and it's taking forever to open, or maybe you're running a filter and it's taking forever to filter. Anyone here? Has anyone
At times,
got
I will angrily restart my system.
So what we were trying to paint here as a picture is Excel in its own right is a very fantastic tool, all right? But as someone who has been into the data space for quite some time, I will tell you from experience that Excel, while it's a fantastic tool, has what we can consider to be a limit or a performance limit when it comes to managing large amounts of data. Yes, many people never get to use Excel to the point whereby they hit this number of rows of record, right? A good example, right, is this morning before getting onto this call, last night or this morning, I was working on a particular data set. I picked data set for just one particular day and I had over, Muyiron said he's in the tracking space, right? I was working on a tracking data set. One day worth of data was over 150,000 rows, just one day. All right, just to give you context. Now, if I do that for 10 days, that is 1.5 million rows, right? 150,000, that's 1.5 million rows.
Yes.
That's one. Do you understand? So what that tells you already, or tells me already, is that even if I wanted to capture that data in Excel today, right?
It will not go in.
Unless I store each of those daily data into different files, I will already run into a limit in less than 10 days. Because Excel has just about 1 million rows that it can accommodate. Are you with me? So that is a real life scenario of where Excel gets to hit its own limit. Not for wrong reason, because that is an application on its own. And that is where we now talk about a database. So maybe we'll take it from there. What do you get that?
My internet went off a bit.
Okay, I just finished introducing the limit that we have with Excel when we get to about 1 million rows. When in my case, when I have over 1.5 million rows of record to capture, and I can't just continue to use Excel at that point in time. That is where a database comes in handy. Okay, so you are taking it from there.
Thank you very much, sir. So now, because of this, your Excel will be taking like forever to process a simple filter. So now, Excel has its limitation. Then but that is why we have database. With database, you have access to a large data set. You have access to, so with database talk about volume, we talk about velocity. So when you talk about velocity, you are talking about the rate at which your database is capturing data every second, it's capturing data every minute, it's capturing data. So now imagine what Excel will do. Your Excel will just crash because of the rate data is going into the database. So now with database, you have access to large data set. I think the minimum a database can even store is about 32 terabytes. Your Excel can take even by 20 MB save. You will need to restart your system. So imagine 20 MB to 32 terabytes. That is the minimum your database can take. So now you have as your with your database, you have access to a large to store large data sets. To store large data sets. Then aside from the limitation we have with Excel and having access to database, now we have said earlier it's an in-demand skill. See, if you want, some of us have lost opportunity before now as a result of our inability to make use of SQL. So now, by the time you look at job placement today, where they are requesting for the service of a data analyst, you will see there at least you should have a basic knowledge of SQL. Even if you don't have it up to intermediate or advanced level, you should be able to use your select from your where clause, your having your group by. At least these are some basic syntax or some basic scripts that can be run on our RDBMS. So don't panic by the word RDBMS that I just mentioned. We get into it in a matter of seconds. So it's an in-demand skill. We need to succeed as a data analyst. So we have to go beyond Excel, we have to go beyond visualization with Power BI. We need to have access to database. And one of the ways in which can have access to database is to use SQL to query or to extract data from our database. So it's an in-demand skill. So it is used in communicating with our database. So now we have talked about database. So now let's understand what a database is. A database is a collection of data. Is a collection of data. The reason why we are collecting this data is for us to easily have access to it. You can easily manage it and it can be updated. So a database is an organized collection of data that's stored electronically for easy access, for easy management, and for updating. Now your database can store large amounts of data. It can store large amount of data, and it is usually managed by a DBMS, database management system. DBMS, database management system. So this database management system is what is the intermediary between you, the user, and the database. Between you, the user, and the database. The database management system. Okay, sorry, I don't know. Okay, let me not use that analogy. It's a religious analogy, so I don't want to go there because we have everybody here in this on this call. So now there is a means in which you have to access something. For example, okay, let me use this. For example, now some of us to have access to our father, we will go through our mother. because of the relationship we have with our mother. So our mother in this case now is the intermediary between us and our father. So now the only way in which you can reach your database is through a DBMS, a database management system. So it's the one serving and it's the intermediary between us, the user, and the database. Now there are majorly two types of database. We have the relational database management system, or which is also called the SQL database. Then we have the NoSQL database. We have the RDBMS and the NoSQL database. Now with the RDBMS, what it does is it's to store structured data. Now we have what we call structured and unstructured data. So we get to see them here. The RDBMS is to store structured data. So when you talk about structured data, think of remember in secondary school, I think in primary school, we do write exam that they say show the difference of something in a tabular format. Show the similarity of something in a tabular format. Some of us that did accounting, before we got to vertical format, there's 3 tabular formats we used to work with. So when you talk about structured data, you are talking about having a table, and your table is always the common feature of a table is that it consists of rows and columns. So let's quickly look at our Excel. So you can see this is a typical example of a table. You have your rows and you have your columns. You have your rows and your columns. So any data we put into this space is a structured data. So your structured data are in a tabular format. Your structured data are in a tabular format. So now you use SQL in relational database. Use SQL to communicate with your database. Remember we said a DBMS is the intermediary between us, the user, and the database. So now we have gone a deep further to say we have majorly 2 types of DB. Relational SQL database. Then the relational database data simply means our data in tabular form. Then we use SQL to communicate in relational database management system. We use SQL. It's the database. Remember, Prof talked about flavors. Your Samsung, you have your Innis, and you have your Techno. Some of us like to be on the high side. That's why some of us like to use flavors of different flavors also. Database management system. Please, you can call me. Hello, Prof. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, I can hear you. So I was just going to speak to the flavors you were talking about and the structured and non-structured data. You actually have done a very fantastic job introducing structured data. Any data, just keep it simply, right, for everyone. Any data that you can that has a structure of a table, in this case has rows and columns, right? That can be, or that should be structured. It can be considered to be what? A structured data set. All right. The semi-structured data set are usually the ones in between the non-structured and the structured data set. Usually your JSON files, your XML files, which by right, they have a little bit of structure within them. So they're usually called semi-structured data sets. All right. While your the data that is not structured, I mean, an audio file, for instance, your flat files, your what's the word now? You have your flat files, you have your video files. This actually CCTV footage, for instance, is actually data, but these are not data sets considered as structured. All right, because when you are trying to look at it from a tabular point of view, this is not data that you have in a tabular format. Okay, so usually your structured data sets are usually the ones that you store within. Are usually the ones you store within a database. Okay, because the database has that structure. The whole point, he has been talking about RDBMS. What that means is basically relational database. All right, which means you have a table that is related to another table. In this case, imagine if you're going to school today, you gain admission into a particular university. The first thing, or one of the first things that the school does, is to issue you a matric number. Right, usually that matric number is supposed to serve as your identifier throughout school. All right, or your student registration number, your student ID, whatever it is. That meant to serve as a registration number throughout school. Whenever results are released, you don't see them release your name. Again, I don't know if they do that now, but you don't see them release your name and your result. They usually release these matric numbers, which I represent you, right, together with your result. What that means in a case of structured or in a database format means I have a database with a table. Now, in the database, there is a table. Follow it this way. In a database, there is a table, right? Inside your databases, you have tables. In your database, you have a table that is for student records, for instance. I have Emmanuel inside there with student matric number, ABC, whatever it is. I have another person's name Muyiron in there with, that is the data. The structure there is to store only student records. Usually we call that kind of data a master data, which means that kind of data it barely changes. My name is likely never going to change throughout my lifetime, right? Did I capture my name onto a system, it's probably going to always remain the same. Then inside the same database, you now have another table called student results. And you say Mat 101 for XYZ person. Instead of you to write the person's name in that table now, you reference the person's ID in that table. Okay, I mean, we were going to show you some of this when we go to the database creation and table creation. Okay, so that is the whole point of having a database. The database helps your data to be structured in a way and manner that when you want to start reading it, right? Reading it in this case, fetching it out either for analytics or for whatever the purpose might be. It becomes very easy to interact with. It becomes scalable. The whole point of using a database is for the scalability of your data. I mean, we talked about velocity earlier. So if you want to store data very, very fast, you need to store it in a way and manner that it is structured. A SQL database is that kind of a structured database that helps you to keep data in the way and manner. In this case, you have reference or master data sets or tables separated from transactional data set. So when I buy something from you, you're not storing my name afresh. You're basically just saying, oh, there's a customer ID with this particular sale, this particular customer ID with this particular sale. Whenever I need information about the customer, I can always go back to my master table to say, okay, what is this customer's name and so on and so forth. I know I just painted a pictorial picture of this verbally, but we're going to be practical about this. We're going to soon get to the practical aspect of this. And Muyiron is going to do a very great job at showing that to us. Okay, back to you, Muyiron. Okay, one more thing I failed to mention. There is also now a concept called NoSQL. All right, NoSQL is let me be careful here. NoSQL is usually used for your semi-structured kind of database data sets. All right, the concept of NoSQL is like, I'm not necessarily defining the structure from beginning. You can have your structure internally within yourself, but I'm not necessarily defining your structure for you before storing the data. A good example is this, right? If I have an Excel file open in front of me and I have a column for name, the only thing that is valid to enter the column for name should be a name. All right. The only thing that should go into the column for date should be a date. If you add any other thing underneath that, it breaks the structure of that particular data set. But in a NoSQL database or in a NoSQL storage of data, if your data does not have name, it doesn't matter. You can store it without name. If your data doesn't have date and you have just the name, you can store just the name. All right. It doesn't have all the structure. It says whether you have a structure in yourself or not, just bring yourself in. So in your own, let's say you're capturing information about Muyiwa, and you're only able to get Muyiwa's first name and last name. In a NoSQL database, you can store that first name and last name alone. But when you now come to capture Emmanuel's own record, you're able to capture Emmanuel's name, his last name, his date of birth, his marital status, the schools he attended. In a NoSQL database, you can store all of that information inside one document file in there, which is not the same way you store data in a structured or SQL database. There's nothing wrong with both of them. I have to be honest. So we're not trying to talk down one for the other. No, there's nothing wrong with both of them. I use NoSQL databases when I'm building applications, because for my applications to scale, right, sometimes you need to use a NoSQL database so that because some things you are not going to plan at the beginning of time, you can be adding them as you go along the way. But in a structured database, usually used for analytics purposes, you need to have the structure in place. Name must be where name should be. Date must be where date should be. Okay? I just wanted to give that concept around the types of databases that we have. NoSQL databases, the SQL databases are around as well. So back to you, Muyiwa.
Thank you very much, sir. So Prof has helped us to do great justice to this. So now let's go ahead. Now, so what was the now we have talked about data. So you don't talk about the database without data. So there are data we want to store. So there are facts, there are information we want to store. We talked about a customer ID, a customer table, for example. We have the customer name, the address of the customer, his contact number. So there are data to be stored. Then we talked about having tables. Like you said, your database is made up, is saving data in a structured form. So when you talk about structure, you are talking about table. And table consists of rows. Tables consist of rows and columns. So when you talk about spreadsheets, you majorly talk about rows and columns. But when you're in database, you talk about record. You talk about record. Let me open some here. Let's say, for example, we have yeah, so this data, this is the data we are using. So we have this row, for example. So this is a record of on a particular date in a particular region or state, this product was sold at this price, at this rate, and the expenses spent on that particular product. So it is a record. So when you talk about rows in database, you are talking about records. Then columns, you talk about field. So the field is where the field shows the type of data that column is accommodating, the type of data that is stored under that column. That's where that is on that field. You see that particular type of data. So in a moment, also see the types of data we have in SQL. So you also thought this is very important. We are talking about primary key. So now when you talk about primary key, you are talking about unique identifier. The matric number of person A is definitely going to be different from person B. In organization, employee 5 persons can bear Muyiwa Aladeto, but those 5 persons will never have the same employee ID. So there's something to identify everyone uniquely. So when you talk about primary key, which is a unique identifier, then a foreign key, we also talk about foreign key, which is what is linking table A to table B. A foreign key is what is establishing a relationship between 2 or more tables. Let's quickly look at a sample here. Now here we have 3 different tables. We have the customer table, the order table, and the details table. Now let's look at the customer table. We have primary key. Customer 1 is John Doe his email, his country, customer, and 2. Then look at the second table. Now, you can see on the second table, we have a column linking us to the customer table. It means this order on this date was purchased by customer 1. So who is customer 1? Is now taking us back to the customer table. Who is customer 1? John Doe. Where is he from? United States. If you want to contact him, his email address. So you can see. So here now, so your primary key on a table can be a foreign key on another table. That is the typical example. This customer ID here, he has helped us to create a relationship with the customer table. Now let's look at the details table for another example. So here you can see on the details table we have the order ID. The order ID is a primary key here, but on the details table, the order ID is is a foreign key. Look at it's a one. So what is if you want to know more about the order, you can see the order 01001 on this date was the order date, the total amount that was spent on that order. So now a primary key on the table can be a foreign key on another table. Your primary key is what is uniquely identifying a table, while your foreign key is what is establishing relationship between 2 or more tables. All right, sir. Please, can go ahead.
Thank you very much. So very, very great explanation there. So the primary key, as Mira said, is what helps you to identify. So remember when Mira was trying to change the concept of rows to records for you, right? Every line in your database or in your database. Now, remember there's a database and there's table. So when people say they're storing data in a database, while that sounds correct, you actually don't store data in a database, you store data in a table that is in a database. Okay. So, but that's not, we're not here for the schematics. So that line, every line of record in a table, right, that is stored in a database. Man, Timmy, why did you do that? Anyways, every line that you have in your table of a database in a table, right, needs to have a record ID. There's usually an identifier. There should be. Not all tables have. I mean, some designs have over the past not had. But every record in a database table should have a record ID, right? Because that is the ID that is used for those who are using Excel and do VLOOKUPs. The idea of VLOOKUPs came with this coming to reality, because if you are going to fetch data that is referenced from somewhere else, you need to be able to do a VLOOKUP to fetch that data in, right? Even though we use VLOOKUPs for quite a number of things still today. But the concept here is there is a key identifying that record first somewhere, right? Then you are looking at, let's say you are looking at the orders table. Orders table is not meant to talk about customer at all. That's the concept of having a table in a database. All right. So we do this beautiful some of these things in Excel. We just kind of sometimes model it all up. It is not bad, but I believe that people are here today are for people who want to understand how database scales beyond just what we have in Excel. So when you are looking at how data scales beyond what we have in Excel, usually there is a structure around it. When you look at table for customer, it's only customer information that you will not see what the customer bought in customer table. You should not see it there, because there should be a table for sales. All right. The table for sales is not the table where you go in and say, oh, I sold A, I sold B, I sold C at this time, at this time, at this time. That probably is also the same table for payment. That's probably another table for payment, because payment, I can sell to somebody and they basically pay me using a different or two different ways of paying me or whatever it is. That sale may have different payments attached to it. So there should be another table for payments. Okay. There's a table for orders. There's a table for sales. There's a table for purchasing. So each and or if it's a school system, there's a table for the students, there's a table for all the subjects, there's another table that has all the scores in it. That is how relational databases work. So when you are now going to the sales table and saying the person that bought from me is customer ID A, that customer column there, as Mira called it, that field in there is now a foreign key. Why is it a foreign key? It's because it is referencing the customer ID. Because I'm not storing the customer information in the sales table. I am basically storing the ID. In this case, John Doe, who is customer ID 1. If you look at the other table that Mira has here, that column for customer ID, Mira, kindly highlight the column. Let me see. I can highlight here. Sorry, give me a sec. I think I can highlight from here. No, I can't. So this customer, no, because the other ID table, that's where we have the other IDs, the customer column there, exactly. This customer ID 1 here means it is representative of John Doe. That ID there is representing every record that this particular customer is John Doe with email address this and from particular country, USA. So instead of storing the customer's information afresh inside your order table or your sales table, you just store the ID there. So in the primary table where that ID generated from, it is the primary key there. But when it is now used in another table to establish a relationship, it is now called a foreign key. Understand this and you have no problem with databases. Okay, back to you, Mira.
Thank you very much, sir.
I wish you can get into the practical soon, though. But go ahead.
Yes,
I'm enjoying this.
Yeah. Okay, we are almost getting there. So now there are data types everywhere. We have different types of data. So we have numeric data type. There are more than this. Just these are one of the most common ones. We have numeric data type, date data type, text data type. So with number data type, we talk about integer, your own number. We talk about small ints. So you can see with small ints, the lowest numbers, the lowest numbers it can accommodate and the highest. So it can accommodate from -22 up to 32,767 records. That with small. So once anything goes beyond 32,767 record, your small int data type will be throwing up error for you. So you have big integer. You can see the amount of records that it can take. Then you have your decimal data type is still almost the same to your decimal data type. You also have your date data type. Date stores your date, time, date and time. For year you have it. Then you have for text, you have character. This chart means character. Then you have varchar, which is variable character. With this chart, that's just basically character. Like I said, there's a fixed length that you can take. For example, you want to enter, okay, let's say for example, you want to enter a phone number in the column. You all know that phone numbers consist of 11 digits. So you can decide to store your phone number using fixed character because you know that what is going to be in that place is no more than 11 digits. Just for example. So it can hold close to 255 characters. So it can use this for name, for example. Some people's names are just John Joseph. While some people you have Aladeton, Olua, this, that. So it can store data based on so with phone number you're storing just 11 digits, but with varchar, with variable character, you can store ranges of text in that same column. Then with text, It's just like on with ordinary text data type, it's just like unlimited. You can store as many as possible. All right, sorry, I'm going back. All right. So now the next question we may want to ask ourselves is, where do we set up a database? Now your database can be set up locally on your system or in a system somewhere. Then can also be set up in the cloud. Because some of we hear about cloud computing or saving data in the cloud. So when basically when talking about saving data in the cloud, just talking about saving data over the internet or having storage over the internet. So it can be set up either on a PC or in the cloud. So basically the difference is this. For your local setup is majorly for learning and testing. But for production, for real, for companies' databases, no company want to store data. They have the database in local. Is majorly on the cloud. So with the cloud, you need internet to access it. But your local setup is on your system, so there's no need for internet. There's no need for internet. And also with the cloud, even anywhere you are, you can access, you can still have access to the database anywhere you are. So you may be on a system somewhere else and have access to the database anywhere you are. So yours can be set up locally or on the cloud. So we have already set out the guidelines on how we can install our database. So the one that was sent to us was for Postgres SQL. So, but basically, whichever you want to install, once you go through Google, type in the one you like to install, you will see setup instruction that you can follow through in order to have it set up on your PC. So for your local data, for your local setup, you have Progress, you have MySQL, MSQL, you have SQLite, and so on and so forth. There are the various flavor we talked about earlier. Then for cloud, you have Amazon RDS, you have Microsoft Azure, you have Google Cloud, SQL. So now we are finally gotten to where we are going to. Prof. Sir, please can go ahead.
So I just wanted to chime in there. So if you need help with setting up any one of these kind of databases, maybe either for your company or personally, after this session, please do well to reach out to us via the email that is hello@camanda.academy. I'm more than happy to get on board with you to sort that out, either for your company or for you individually. If you're looking to set up a cloud infrastructure today, let's say you need something in Azure or in Google Cloud or whatever it is. So do well to just reach out to hello@camanda.academy. Just write a quick email to that and we'll be able to sort that out for you. Okay. So the one we will be showcasing the one we send to your email is when you want to set up locally. Locally right now means on your own system. You can set up a small database on small now is relative in this case because it's depending on the size of space you have on your system, right? So you can set up a database on your system. It will run like every other database that is available in the cloud, but this time around, just as it's local to your system, it is not available to any other person anywhere else. It will run like every other database. You can run the queries as you wish, but you can only run that on your system. But if you want to do that for your company or you want to have your database in the cloud, please do well to write to hello@camanda.academy and someone will be on the other side of the email to respond to you. Back to you, Muyiron.
Thank you very much, sir. So we have finally gotten to where we are aiming at. So now we want to create database. Okay, let me just quickly go a bit forward and come back. Now, remember we are talking about simplification of database creation using AI. So we have access to various AI tools, Chat, GPT, Copilot, Gemini. We have so many, but these are some of the most commonly used ones. I know I used Chat GPT a lot and Gemini. Of recent, I've become a coder overnight thanks to this just that GPT and Gemini. So I use both of them a lot. So you have access to. Okay, I thought someone wants to speak. So you have access to ChatGPT, you have access to Gemini, you have access to Copilot. So they have made life easy for us. But one thing we need to know is that when using this, we need to be careful also. We need to be careful also. Most especially, it will not be nice to dump our company's data into them. All right. So you need to be careful with their usage. All right. So now let's go back. So let's create a database. So we create a database. Then inside that database, we are now going to create a table because it's that table that is going to hold our data. So we are going to create table. So now you don't need to rack your brain. What's that syntax or what is that function? What is that script I need to write to create a database? If you don't know it, don't worry. What is that syntax that I need to know in order to create a table? What's that syntax I need to know in order to enter my data into the table? Don't worry, just make use of your chat GPT or your copilot. So for example now, I can just type SQL scripts to create teachers database. Can you see? The script has been written for me. So you don't need to start racking your brain. You don't need to start racking your brain. What's the script I need to create a database? What's the script I need to insert to create a table to insert? No. You just type what you need. You get your results. Look at it very well. Once it meets what you need, copy it and go and drop it. So let's dive into it. So if you have your SQ, if you have your Postgres installed or any other flavor installed on your PC, let's run through this. So now I'm going to open up my server. So I can use the interface here to create my database directly. Also, it's possible I can do that from here. Just right click, then give the database a name. Give the database a name. So let me name it. Let me just name it SQL Masterclass. Then I click save. That's it. My database have just been created. My database have just been created. I can click on it, then click on this query tool I have there. That's it. So if I want to start running any query on this database, I can begin to enter them here. So now, but there's no table existing in this database yet. And see, let me come to schema tables. And see, there's no table existing in this database yet. It is empty. So now, let's bring in a table. So Let me close this. Sorry. That file that was sent to us. Let me open it. So this is the file that was sent to us. So I want to create this table now. So I can just copy. I can copy it up to one or two rows under it. Then drop it on my AI tool. Then enter like two spaces. Press your enter like twice. Then give it your instruction. Create table in SQL. So you can see it has given me the script to create this table. It has given me the script to create this table. Retailer ID, voucher, 100. Yes, sir. Please can continue. You can go ahead, sir.
This is marvelous. Allow me, hear me out. You understand why I say so. The first time I wrote an SQL script myself, honestly, see this create table concept, right? This create table script. It was one of it was anything that had to do with creating data or whatever it is into a database. As an analyst, then we were not even given the permission to do that. So I didn't learn SQL with learning how to create anything. All I had to do was select or get data out of the database. There was nothing wrong with that. Well, where am I driving to with that analogy? It took years, or it took a while. Let me just use years. It took a while to even understand the concept of SQL, understood the data set that we had before started writing SQL statements. Then, but guess what? In 2025, that knowledge gap can be closed out in a matter of minutes. If you want this tool right now to explain to you what each of these things mean, it will go ahead and explain that to you. Now, it is not just about copying the script and utilizing it. Also understanding it is important, no doubt. But in the age of AI, now even for those who are coding as well, software developers, there's a concept now called vibe coding. In the age of AI, it's not that I don't know what I don't have to even. I'm not saying you shouldn't know what analytics is or know how a SQL works. But trust me, in this day and age, you probably don't even need to know all about SQL, how it works. All you need to know is this is what the SQL statement expects me to utilize. I'm not asking you to be lazy on SQL. No, don't get me wrong. I know this. I can simply copy this, slam it into my SQL editor, and I am good to go. Closing the gap that you always had in terms of knowledge as regards to this. So even if you wanted to skip the part of learning how the tool works, how the language works, you can have AI with you today as a companion. I hear people worried about how AI is going to do A, is going to do B. Yes, AI, I believe, is going to, my own take is, or my own school of thought is, AI is going to help us redefine the works that we do. It's going to take up some things, but it's going to help us redefine the work that we do. So I don't need to, just to say we don't need to be an analyst today, a data analyst to start using and making sense of your data. With AI today, there's some things you can already start skipping and getting to the point of, you can set up your database and start working today. You don't have to wait till tomorrow. Like install this right now on your system, run this script, you already have a database and table right on your system. The same thing that you would have needed a data engineer, pay them to do that for you prior to now. So in 2025, in the age of AI, really all you need is in your hands. Pick up any of the AI tools today, whichever one you find as a favorite, pick up any one of them. I wish AI was available when I did my SQL. I probably would not have gone through the process of learning SQL, but don't have any regrets. Don't get me wrong. I don't have any regrets in learning SQL. I don't have any regrets. It has helped me a whole lot. I mean, when I see SQL statement today, I'm very confident I can find my way around it. But even if you have not started writing SQL statement, let this be your first SQL statement. How to create a table in a database. This is the statement right in front of you. Understand the concept. It says create, the syntax there right there is create table, right? Then you enter the name of the table. Then inside brackets, you list each of the columns you want and the data type you want for each of those columns. And you are done. Oh, is that how simple it is? Yes. In the age of AI, you can actually start doing these things yourself. I'm not saying you don't need a data analyst or you don't need a data engineer. No, I'm not saying that. But in the age of AI, you can start using these tools to get ahead of these things yourself. So if your job is going to be redefined by AI, you might as well become the person who is redefining your job using AI. Back to you, Muyiron.
Thank you very
If
much,
you have
sir.
any questions, if you have any questions or comments, please do well to drop it in the chat box while we continue with the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So now, the syntax, we have it with us already. So we can see these are the various fields we have in that data set. I can see they have been created for us: varchar, integer, date, varchar, decimal, integer, decimal, varchar. So now these are the data. Remember, we talked about data types. So all these after the field name are the data types that have been assigned to each of the fields. So now let's copy it. Then let's go to our PG admin. So let's drop it in our query editor. Paste. So once you have dropped it, you can now run your query. Look at this, your play button, the usual play button we have on our remote. Once you click on it, it's going to run this for us. You can see, create table, query returned successfully in 106 milliseconds. So let's confirm that the table has been created. Let me right click and refresh. You can see that's the name of the table. You can see, so currently we just have one table created. That's why we have one in brackets. And you can see this is the sales table. And you can see drop down showing the columns that we created inside that table. But currently the table is empty. The table is empty. So now we are going to do the two things. We are going to first see how we can insert data into this our table using a script. Then secondly, we now see how we can import a file into our table. So you can either use a script to bring in your data, or you can use a file. You can import a file into your data, into your table rather, into your table. So now, let's go back to our chat GPT. Now, remember when I was copying, I copied two other rows while copying the header. So ChatGPT went ahead to create an insert statement for me for those two other rows. You can see optional insert sample data. So while copying the data set, you can see I copied two other records. So ChatGPT went ahead to create an insert statement for me. So let me copy the insert statement. So let me make the confession here. So while I was learning SQL, my interest was not to learn how to create database. So it was when I was trying to do some practice on my own. I was running into difficulty creating database. So what I just did, a friend just said, go and use ChatGPT to create this database. And since after that, I've created like 10 other databases on both of my personal laptop and the one in the office. So is what, so let's not, so though we may say, okay, now in our job as a data analyst, yes, we may not create database because the database is just, it's there already for us to have access to, but it is an additional, it is extra for us. It is that nobody, once we have the knowledge, nobody takes it away from us. So it is addition to us when we have the knowledge of creating database. So let me copy the insert statements. Go back to my Postgres. Let me insert two rows into rows. Then let me paste it inside. So I've pasted this. Then I can run it again. So table already existed. Let me refresh. Let me see. Okay. Done. Error says data. Okay, let me do this. Correct. It's ran it now. So it's trying to run the two together. That was why I had the error. So another good thing about SQL is this: once you come across an error, you have your error message. So look at the error message, try to digest it. Even if you don't understand, copy the error message, go and dump it on ChatGPT. Go and dump it on ChatGPT or go and dump it on your AI too. It's going to tell you why that error, and it's going to give you solution to that error. So you can see now, I saw the error showing me that the table already existed. So because I didn't align this, so it was trying to run this and this together. So what I just did was, yeah, Prof, you can go ahead, please.
No, Lando, finish your statements, then I'll make my
Okay,
comments. Finish your statement, I'll
so
make a comment.
what I just did was, it was trying to run the two scripts. So you can always specify the actual script you want to run. So I just highlighted the current script I dropped, or the script I wanted to run, and I ran it, and you can see now I have my script successfully run for me, and I have my success message. So Prof, you can go ahead now, please.
All right, fantastic. So, in addition to the error message that you all experienced not too long ago, in SQL, in your SQL editor, all right, for those who are, maybe this is your first time with SQL, right? There's whatever tool you're using, there's usually a tool that you use to access your SQL database. In this case, this is the PG admin interface, which you can use to interact with a Postgres SQL database. That's this interface you're seeing here. MySQL as a flavor has its own called MySQL Workbench. Microsoft's own MS SQL has its own SQL Server Management Studio called SSMS. All right, or it's also used for Azure. I think also Azure SQL also has its own database tool called Azure Data Studio, I think here. So what am I going to with all of this? Each and every one of these tools, their job is specific. Being able to reach and read a database in the structure that it is, and you can then write your statements using the client ID environment. Now, this client ID environment, which you see on the right-hand side, where there is insert into as a condition. After every SQL job or statement that you want to run successfully, if you use the semicolon, what's SQL on the semicolon statement? This used to be a problem for me. With the semicolon on line 12, please, can you highlight it? Quickly put your mouse on semicolon on line 12. With semicolon on line 12, that's basically separates the statement 1 that we had at the top there and statement 2 under here. Statement 1 was what? Create table. Please go to the top. Statement 1 was what? Create table. Can you see that? It started at create table. You can run all of this without this. If you had only that create table here, you can run it without the semicolon, no problem. Some systems will enforce you to write it, sharp. But in this one, it won't bother you. But what this is also telling you is that you can actually run a batch of scripts. Let me start using the word script here. You can run a batch of scripts, which in this case is create a table, then after creating the table, do the insert. The system, once you click on run, the system will go through each and every one of those steps, one after the other, and run it. So imagine if this was behind an application. I don't know if this is software developer. I don't think this is a software development class. I don't know if there are software developers here. Behind the scenes, when you are also storing data in your database after you have received it from a customer who has submitted something on the front end, you are running a batch of SQL statements to write the data to your database. Something similar to this. All right. What that means is create this particular table, then insert A, insert B, insert C. All of that can be in each. So like for line 14 here is another statement. If I add semicolon to the end of this, I can add another statement. And if I click run, this particular client will try to run each and every one of them one after the other. But like what you experienced from the error, create table has already created the table before. So if you want to run only a portion of your query, right? If you want to run only the insert into, if you highlight it, that portion of the query and click on run, kindly highlight the insert into, for instance, if you highlight only the portion of the insert into, not everything down up until where the insert into ends. If you highlight only that portion and run it, it will respect your rule and just run the one you highlighted. Are you with me? So this way, you are able to separate the first statement from the second statement. While you are storing them there, you're able to separate the first statement from the second statement by running them separately. Are we together? If I go and select line 1 to 12, kindly go to line 1 to 12, just select line 1 to 12. If I select line 1 to 12, it means I'm basically trying to run the create table statement, even though I have all my series of SQL statements on the same page. Okay, so if someone says send me the script to use, you can save all of this in one file and send across. Maybe you're doing an interview or whatever it is, you can save all of this in one file and send across, because in there you have all the scripts, which means someone else can take your script, click on run, and they'll get the same result you have on your own side. But in our own case, you have already created the table, so you can't create the same table that already exists unless you remove or drop in SQL. It's called drop. Unless you drop the table. All right. So if you want to run a portion of your query, you select that portion and run it, and it will run just that portion for you. Back to you, Muyiwa. I don't know if there's any question from anybody so far. Any question from anybody? I don't know. We've gone close to over 1 hour now. Is there any question from anybody? Like so far? Let's not be like just me one, Emmanuel just talking all through. Any question from anybody so far? Okay, if everything has been making sense to you, can we just see maybe can you just give us some emojis? Like use your emojis to express how this has been for you. Can we quickly do that? Can you use emojis? So even if you're not asking questions, I'll just take it to be that we are all together. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So what that means, the emojis have represented that people are following, and that means they are getting the gist. So let's continue then. Thank you very much. Back to you, Muyiwa.
So we have inserted some records. So let's confirm that our records are in our table. So let's quickly run the select statement. So I say select asterisk. That means I want to select a column from my sales data. So let's check. So you can see this to confirm that the two records we dropped are actually we imported. Sorry, let me use that word. Let me use import, not drop. Because when I talk about drop, you are talking about deleting. So the two records we imported are actually now in our table. So now this is one way in which we can import data into table. Now, another way to do this is by using the import module to import data into our table. So let me just quickly create another table. So I will rename it. Let me quickly create another table. So let me rename it as sales table 2. Let me name that. So let's run. So successfully created. Let me refresh my table. So you can see I have my sales table too that I've just created. So now let's import this same data. Let's import the whole of this data into this table. Now to import your data into your table, your data will have to be converted to CSV. Your data will have to be converted to CSV before it can be imported into a table. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to right click, then click on import/export. So because I'm importing, I'm going to select import. Then browse where the data is. Browse where the data is. Open, then can check these options, confirm that because our data here, it's the command is comma delimited. So it's command that is separating our rows. So what's the delimiter comma? So I just ensure that all these are well formatted. Then you can now click on OK. So you can see process completed. If there was any error, we would have seen it there that there's an error while processing this data. So let's check. Let's run our select statement. Let's confirm that our data is now inside. So you can see we have our data inside our table. Is there any question for us? Is there any question for us? Please ask your questions. Ask your questions. Ask your question. All right, Okpeyemi,
Good
kindly
afternoon,
go
Mr.
ahead, please.
Please, can you hear me?
Good afternoon.
Okay, please, can
Yes,
you
I can. I
just
can. Good afternoon.
thank you so much for your time so far. Please, can you just go over the steps again? The steps for importing
For
the
importing.
details. Yes,
Okay, using the import module.
yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you
So
so
now the first thing is your data set should be in a CSV format. So if you have your file in Excel, then when you're saving it, go to your save as data type. You see CSV UTF-8 command, that's command delimited. So ensure it is saved as a USB file, as a CSV file rather. Because if you don't save it as a CSV file, you will not be able to import it. So once that is done, right click on the table you are importing into. Go to import/export. Then because we are importing, so we select it. Then you browse where the data set is. You browse where the data set is. Then other option, it is command that is separating each of the fields from our data set. So that's why I ensure that this place still have my command. So whatever is separating the data set, whatever is separating the data is what you selected. But so in most cases, it's always command, but just check to ensure that it's command. So have the command, then go to it, then not null. So these are just some constraints. Yeah, so I ensure that all these are well formatted the way it should be, comma, inverted, comma, apostrophe, more. So then go back to general, then click on OK to bring it into our data, into our table. So that's that for that. Are you good now? Okay.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank
I
you
also
very
have another
much. Any,
question.
okay, you
While
can
you
go
were
ahead, please.
speaking before now, you said the least a database can take is 32 something.
Terabyte. Terabyte.
Does that mean if I have data that is lower than that, does that mean I can't create a database?
No,
No, you
actually, it was
can.
that way. It was a case of he was trying to make talk about the size that a database can actually amass up onto. It's not actually the choice of words there was just incorrect, right? So it was kind of a database can actually take up to 30 that size of data. Are you with
Oh,
me? I mean, they are
maximum or
even
minimum?
now. I'm careful about using the word maximum. Okay,
Okay.
right? It's certainly not minimum. Okay, okay, I mean, it's certainly not minimum, right? But
Mm.
some databases have a maximum that they can get to. But in 2025, because of the scale that data is currently growing, some data warehouses no longer put limits on they found ways to store data beyond even this particular size we're talking about. Do you
Okay.
understand?
When we talk about this size, are we talking about the database on our local system or the cloud?
We're speaking about the cloud itself, the cloud infrastructure. Database on your local system will be by the limit of what your system can
System
accommodate.
can take. All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So if you have only 5 gig on your system, I don't know if you could do that, still do, but if you have 5 gig on your system right now, you can't store any file or anything database wise or whatever it is that is more than 5 gig. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank,
Back to
thank you
you, Muyiron.
very much, sir. So is there any other question? Is there any other question? We are about to draw up the curtain for today's session. Is there any question for us? Ask your question. Ask your question. All right. So we have done justice to simplification of database creation using AI. So at least with the little knowledge you have today now, we can begin to adjust our CV, SQL knowledge into our CV. So we can begin to do that. Unless at CAMANDA, so we are offering I think there's a cohort starting already today. So you can still be part of the cohort. So this is just if you want to learn SQL alone. If you want to learn SQL alone, you can reach out to us. Then we have all right, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, we're just going to speak to the SQL class. You talked about a cohort starting today. Yes, we have a professionals program that is starting today, different cohort starting today. But before we even talk about the courses that are currently available, I wanted to go back to the SQL bit of things. That if you don't mind going back a bit to the SQL screen, right? That's if there's a few magic you did in there. I wanted to speak about. Now let's talk about what is on line 36, for instance, before we go back to the courses and the rest. On line 36, for instance, at the moment, Muyiron has a very, very powerful statement there. Select. Let me talk about this part. This particular statement changed my life. Now, whenever I talk about data and how my personal experiences are tied together, people usually wonder, are we talking about the same thing? Yes, we are talking about the same thing. I started out my own analytics journey, right? I didn't start out with SQL, but I started my own analytics journey with SQL with this select statement alone. Of course, I've done more things to it with it, but with this select statement alone, that select statement is like what you do when you open up your Excel file today. This select statement is like saying, I want to see only 5 columns, not 10 columns. That select statement is a very, very powerful statement in Excel, in SQL. Now, even if you don't go through the whole process of selecting or creating database, or you already have an existing database like in your company today, or you are not the one in charge of creating the tables, you already have table data available already today. Your own job may have to start from select, maybe as an analyst. If you're an engineer, you probably have to go before the select. But select statement is a statement that says to an SQL database, I want to fetch A, B, C, and D. Now, the easiest way to write a select statement is this. Select asterisks from, I'll use this opportunity to teach this today. If you've not written a select statement before, this is a very simple trick. SQL, when you're writing it, is like writing, of course, people claim so many languages are now written in English, but it's like speaking in English, but you have to speak in a certain kind of way. So when I want to get something from a database, like this particular table that Muyiron has in front of him here right now has retailer. Look at the headers down there. There's retailer ID. Can you help us with the mouse to point out to those columns? There's retailer ID, there's invoice date, and so on and so forth, right? Now that is a table with 9,000 records. How do I know that 9,000 records? 9648 records down there where the mouse is. Now, this is 9,000 records. Probably nothing to some people, probably is a lot for some people. I don't know, whichever bucket you fall into, it doesn't matter at this point. But this particular select statement is using, I told you about the data set I was working with. I was trying to move around this morning. Only one day record is 150,000 rows. Only one day. Which means if I pull data for the last 10 days, I have over 1.5 million rows of record already. I haven't done anything. And this system I'm trying to migrate the data for has been in use from January of this year. So now you do the mathematics in that regard. So it can already tell you the magnitude of data that has to be worked on sometime. Some of us have to deal with. Maybe you as well. So if I have 1.5 million rows of data, 150,000 rows of data, trust me, Excel is a great tool, but I don't think I want to go and start doing that in Excel. I want to do analytics. Excel will not be my first choice at that point in time. How can I write a simple select statement that will help me to fetch the desired result I need from the table? Now, let me teach you SQL. I know we've talked about how AI can help you, but let me teach you let me teach you a very simple select statement. You start by writing select. Maybe please help us go to the next line. I know you've written it 2 times already, but just go to another line. You start by writing select. Select in this case is telling a database, I want to fetch records. I want you to go to the database, do your magic, and find me some records in there. Now, the next thing that comes immediately after select is usually the columns or all columns. The column or the rows that you want, I say rows. The columns you want to fetch. Do you understand? We were calling them fields earlier. The columns you want to fetch. Okay, in this case, I want to fetch retailer and retail. I want to fetch, let me see, what can I fetch? Please let me fetch invoice date and price per you and product. Let me fetch it. Meanwhile, typing invoice date. As you can see, invoice date right now is a column. Look at the column down there. It is there. I'm not picking it off the air. Can you see down there? Right? Invoice date is down there. All right. It's picking the product. It's selecting the product column. What am I telling SQL? I know you have multiple columns, right? I think about 29 columns here. I know you have multiple rows, but I need you to fetch from me. You select by the columns, by the way. Give me invoice date, give me product, give me the unit sold. Let's stop at that for now. Give me the unit sold. Then the next thing you do immediately after you select the column is you now use it. I usually call it select what from what. Please let me write from the next line so we see it clearly. Let me write from on the next line. Select what from what. It's a very simple statement. Even if you've not written SQL before and this is your first time at it, you can try this today and you'll be very successful at it. My team members, sometimes I push this to them. Write your first select statement. It will actually help you start getting conversant with SQL. It's not difficult. Select what from what. Simple. This is how simple a select statement can be. Please highlight these two lines and please run it. Select invoice date row. Can you see right now? It has gone in there and fetched for me all the rows, but by retaining just the columns that I want it to select. I wished it together. Even if you've not written SQL, this is how you write SQL statement to fetch data. Select ABC from this particular data, from this particular table. So if I want to select all columns, usually I betrayed my databases multiple times then, without knowing that I was putting a lot of load on my server, which was early days. So if I want to fetch all the columns in my database, in my table, I'll use select then asterisk. You know, please help quickly show that for us. Select then exactly line 38. Select asterisk. Select asterisk means select all. You must put something after the select. Select all columns. You are not speaking the language verbally, but that's what you are telling me. Imagine you are speaking it in English. Select all from this table. Okay? Now, as an extra tip, and now I know I'm not supposed to, maybe was probably going to come in very soon because of the time. But another thing I will give to you is how do you filter? Now we go to the next line. So please let me take the from to the next. No. Let's use line 38. Let's use line 38 now. Since we have done select all, let's use line 38. Let me take from to the next line. Let me take it from to the next line. So I want you to still follow that same syntax. No, when my people here get conversant with a select statement, they can write it however they want. Okay. Now go to the next line and then do where. And this is where I'm going to stop for today. Where in this case, as you can see, there are different states or regions or whatever it is in this particular data. Please show me my state here. Show me my state here. Can you see the state column? We have New York as a state, right? What other column? What other data do we have in there? Do you have? I'm sure we don't have Lagos in there, do we?
Yes.
Okay, we have Texas. So let's use Texas then. Okay. Let's use Texas. So I want to now select all the data. I'm still the same English show. Select all from the sales table where. Now this is where it's like me applying a filter. The way you do filter in Excel. Where my state is equal to, then I put Texas. Equal to, in quotes now, Texas. These are some of the things you just have to start getting used to. Texas. What this means, before Muyiron runs it, is select all from this table, sales data, and then apply a filter that the state is equal to or Texas. Remember, we have 9648 number of rows down here before we run, right? Now, Muyiwa, please help me run that. Kindly help me run that. We have 9648 rows. Now, let me run this now. Yeah, it's usually single code. Yeah, thank you. I need select. How many rows do we see now? 432. So from 9,000 rows of data, we now have 432 rows of data. Simple select statement. That is the power of a database. Now imagine with me that I was working with 150,000 rows of data this morning. I wanted to select tracking data for just one vehicle. What do I need to do? So I'm going to go and start looking for vehicle one after the other, going through it line by line. I use my SQL statement to find data from a very large amount set of data sets. Are you with me? So maybe you can go back to your slide presentation. That is the power of SQL. It manages large set of data like it is nothing. Somebody say money na water, Abi. In the case of SQL, yeah, data na water for this one. Do you understand? Maybe please can you go back to your slide presentation? Are you with me? So the class that we have coming up, yes. For the next cohort of SQL class is coming up by July. All right. If you are interested in joining our SQL class for July, now which obviously is not going to be a 1 hour class, like it's going to be a full extended class for 6 weeks. Okay. If you're interested in joining our SQL class for professionals, which we are going to teach how to write simple select statement like the one I just did, or how to do even more than what we just discussed in the last 1 hour plus. Please do well to drop your interest, drop your name in the chat box and your phone number. We'll definitely reach out to you and sign you up for the next class that is coming up in July. So I hope you are interested in furthering your skill in SQL. I'll be more than happy to take you in that class. Muyiwa here will also be available to take you in that particular class. Okay, so if you are interested, please kindly indicate by raising your hand. If you are interested in joining the SQL for Professionals class, please indicate by raising your hand. Someone will definitely reach out to you, or you can drop your name and your phone number in the chat box, and someone will definitely reach out to you. Aside from the SQL for Professionals class that we have coming up in July, as Muyiwa said earlier, we already have our data analytics for professionals, which is our Excel, Power BI, and Copilot class that is coming up. That is not even coming up. One of the cohort is starting today, right? This afternoon. It's starting this afternoon. We have another cohort coming up in what's it called in July. So if you're interested in joining the current cohort or you want to join the next one, please do well to indicate that I want to join either the Excel class or the Power BI class or the combined classes. I want to join the SQL class. Just drop your details in the chat box and someone will definitely reach out to you with more details. It's been a pleasure sharing this knowledge with you. I don't know if anyone has any questions for us at this point in time. If you are interested, if you are able to pay a commitment fee within the next 24 hours, now you don't have to pay the full amount before the class starts. If you are interested in joining, but you don't have the full amount or you're willing to pay a particular commitment fee within next, we're able to give you a discount. Even if you want to pay in full, no problem. We'll be able to offer a discount, but you need to drop your name and your email address in the chat box and someone will reach out to you privately for that. We're able to offer a discount to those who are able to do that between now and Monday. Okay, so if you're interested in that, please drop your, if whether you want to join the SQL class, Excel class. The SQL class is for 6 weeks. The Excel and Power BI class is for 8 weeks. It's for 8 weeks. The Excel classes and Power BI classes are also separating. If you are interested in any one of these things, please do well to let us know by dropping your name or indicate by raising your hand, and someone will definitely reach out to you. If you have any further questions, please ask at this point. Before we take our leave. Any questions or comments at this point from anybody? Any questions or comment from anyone? Any questions, comments? The class is gone cold already. Okay, so I'll take that to be that you're still thinking about it. But at this point in time, it's been a pleasure sharing. Do you have anything to say before we leave?
Nothing much to say. Then let's meet in class.
All right, we'll meet everyone. We'll see everyone in class. For those who are interested, expect the recording of this particular session will be sent to you via your email that you registered for this particular masterclass. So we hope to see you in class soon. More masterclasses will be released, will be announced soon as well. So do well to check on our emails as we release them. More AI courses or AI masterclasses or SQL masterclasses or full-fledged courses will be released as time progresses. Please do well to look forward to it. If you want to learn more about us, visit CAMANDA.academy to get more details. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for being a part of this session. I've loved every bit of it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Do enjoy the rest of your day.